Good evening and welcome to the City of Helena Administrative Meeting, September 1st, 2021, 4 p.m. This meeting is called to order. Madam Clerk, would you take the roll, please?
City Attorney Joden.
Here.
Here. Commissioner Halliday.
Here.
Commissioner Dean.
Here.
Commissioner Logan.
Here.
Commissioner O'Loughlin. Here. Mayor Collins.
Here. Madam Clerk, I have a black screen, so I don't know if whatever you're sharing, it's not coming through.
Can you see it now, Mr. Mayor?
No, ma'am. Can any other? There you go. Welcome and thank you for participating in the City of Helena City Commission Administrative Meeting. We are pleased to be able to provide this alternative meeting format in the city's effort to broaden public participation. Please be patient as we may experience technical difficulties during the meeting. We welcome public commentary. Please read the following tips and guidelines for the app usage and your participation. Thank you. We have recommendations from Helena Citizen Council. Susan Steffens, you have the floor.
Hi, yes, I'm happy to be here. Just keeping you updated on some of the Helena Citizen Council events and things that we've been working on. One is last meeting, we had the swearing in of several people that had been appointed. They have not been elected as Citizens Council. We will be having our election in November and we will have some new members in January. Also, the last meeting we had the public information officer share some information about things that were going on with the city and the civic center. We've been dealing with, before that we talked about the water rights and why we had water restrictions. We had a very informative meeting with the water people from 10 Mile. It was really good. And in the spring, we worked on the budget and presented that to the commission. So we've been trying to be as actively involved and trying to get as many citizens involved as we can. Does anybody have any questions?
Any comments or questions for Ms. Steffens? Thank you, Ms. Stephens. We appreciate your input. City Clerk update.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, I'm Danae Claiborne, Clerk of the Commission, City Clerk. You should have received in your previous to now the applications that are being put forward by the mayor for various city boards. That includes the Regional Airport Authority Commission, Business Improvement District, Heritage Preservation and Tourism Board, and the Non-Motorized Travel Advisory Council. If you have any questions, I'll entertain them now. Otherwise, I would ask that we move forward with a formal vote at Monday's meeting.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So you have in your packet there the appointments that I am recommending. Do you have any comments or questions?
Mr. Mayor, just the same question I had raised at the last commission meeting regarding appointments to the airport board. Obviously, again, like I've said before, the airport board is currently not paying its assessments. We're in negotiations with them, the discussion of litigation by the airport board or non-payment. That's the decision of the airport board. And so I'm just curious whether we did any looking into whether or not the individuals that we're appointing to the airport board are antagonistic to the city's position, and whether we're just reappointing people who are choosing to not pay the city assessments, and we'll have the ultimate call on whether or not there's going to be a legal fight with the city.
Thank you, Commissioner. Madam Manager, do you have any comment to make concerning Commissioner Halliday?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for your question, Commissioner Halliday. The appointments go through the mayor, and the team in the clerk's office shared over the appointments in a memorandum and shared them to me. I am not aware of any concerns with the reappointment of the gentleman as noted in the packet tonight. And I did review, and he did reach to us previously as well during the conversation and around the payments by the airport. I do not have any concerns. I'm not aware of any other concerns with his reappointment.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the commission? Okay, I'll entertain a motion then.
Well, Mr. Mayor, just a point of clarification. I'm just asking that if there were any questions other than Commissioner Halliday's regarding the applications that you put forward, we wouldn't ask for a formal vote until Monday.
Okay. Thank you. Department directions, feedback needed. A, proposed ordinance amending Title 5, Chapter 7 of the Helena City Code by changing certain definitions from found in 5-7-11. Manager Hollishaw.
Thank you, Mayor. If I may, there were two items left off of the agenda when it was posted early on. It's been revised online. It was revised this morning. The first item is the city manager's report and the city attorney's update. I'm happy to start the department direction and move us into the conversation around the proposed noise ordinance changes, but first would ask that myself and City Attorney Joden have an opportunity to provide an update if you're open to it.
Comments or questions from the commission? For the manager or the city attorney?
Mr. Mayor, I would say I think the city manager's report and attorney's report would be good right now.
I'm sorry, Commissioner, I didn't get you. Would you please repeat?
Sure. I said, I think, well, I correct me if I'm wrong, Rachel, it sounded like she had a manager's report to give first. So I was just saying I was supportive of adding that right now.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions for the commission? Okay.
So
Go ahead.
on the update, or would you like me to move to the noise ordinance?
Whichever one, Madam.
Okay, quick update. I have Director Pinozo. I will turn to her real quickly. First, though, want to share with you that I have had a conversation with the chair and the vice chair of the Civic Center Steering Committee, and we are scheduled for their September meeting. Director Pinozo would like to give a quick update on the Kendrick field and work we're doing at that location. I know she has a report on the list of updates planned and wanted to make sure to give her an opportunity to share current information with you all.
Thank you. Mayor, commissioners, Christy Pinozo, Parks and Recreation Director. Wanted to give you guys a quick update on Kendrick Legion Field. Just for a bit of background, just a refresher, we did a request for proposals earlier this year for use of Kendrick Legion Field and received 2 proposals, one from American Legion and one from the Expedition League, which is a college based, a college sports team, college baseball team league. And we worked on a potential shared use between the 2 of those. We were unable to come to a shared use agreement because of so many days in conflict, but we're looking at future shared use between those 2 leagues at Kendrick Legion Field. We do not believe that it's the right time to pursue a shared use agreement with the Expedition League based on the challenges we've seen Butte Silverbow encounter with their Expedition League team in Butte. We don't think it at this time is a good fit for the community of Helena. We'd like to move forward with continued Legion baseball at Kendrick Field and making some capital improvements that were part of our budget for Kendrick this year. We have heard from the community of Helena that baseball is important to the entertainment and recreation pursuits in the community. And luckily, we do have an amazing Legion program that the city continues to support at Kendrick. And we'll continue to provide and pursue more baseball, youth sports, and family entertainment in our community. So just wanted to give you that brief update on Kendrick Legion Field.
Thank you, Director Pinozo. Manager Howell-Shaw. Any comments or questions for the director? Go ahead, Commissioner Logan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For Director Pinozo, please. So, you know, I kind of followed the Expedition League's experience in Butte Silverbow and am too concerned about it. I was wondering if you had opportunity to reach out or engage with them in any way about what that might mean for the future for their presence in Helena.
Director.
Yes, Mayor, Commissioner Logan, I have reached out and had a conversation with the Expedition League. They do understand our concerns with bringing them here based on what has happened in Butte. I've also had conversations with JP Gallagher, who is the executive down there in Butte, and he shared his concerns with me, and I don't know that at this point they have determined what the future of the Expedition League is going to look like in Butte Silverbow.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Loughlin.
Thanks, Mayor. Just a quick question on the budget. So it was my understanding that when the city put forward the proposal for artificial turf, that was tied with having an additional team use the field. So I just for clarification, when you mention capital improvements to Kendrick Field, is that are you all thinking about still looking to install artificial turf, or is that no longer needed?
Just to clarify, the item as it was adopted in the budget was that it was funded at half, the ask, and then the other half would be tied to a commitment that the city would make an additional contract for a second organization on the field. So as far as the project, we cannot go forward without full funding.
Mayor,
Yeah.
oh yeah, go ahead, Director.
I would just also add, we had other capital improvements in the budget for Kendrick. Our stadium seating, which is a big investment and a big need there. So there were other investments as well.
Okay, and just to clarify, so the 125 that was provided, the half is no longer needed.
For
Turf.
those dollars were the investment into the turf, the AstroTurf. The other investments that Director Pinozo noted are in a different allocation. Is that correct, Christy?
Correct. They're capital improvements for stadium seating replacement for compliance with ADA.
But we just need an answer, because I think what Commissioner O'Laughlin is saying is, since we don't have the additional team coming in, are we still going to use the money for the turf?
As I shared, the project cannot go forward without full funding.
Thank
But
you.
it sounds like we also don't need it because there's not a second team.
That was not the recommendation. The recommendation was to provide the additional AstroTurf so that we can improve the use and reduce the maintenance at the field itself. So it wasn't tied to activity. That was a further discussion and distinction added, but not part of the recommendation by the staff.
Okay, Mayor, I would just say for the record, I mean, we were told that the reason why the artificial turf was needed was for a second team. So thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Commissioner Dane?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I just guess I want to clarify with the city manager too, because part of my understanding is we can't do regular concerts or anything else like that in partnership with the Civic Center programming at Kendrick, really, without damaging the field too bad if we don't have turf, and also for water conservation. Is that accurate?
I'll turn that over to Director Pinozo. And Christy, if you could, if I'm wrong and incorrect in my statement around the AstroTurf, I believe that further distinction on it wasn't just because we needed the 2 feet on the field, as I recall. So certainly correct me. And then also, if you could provide an answer for Commissioner Dean, that would be great. Thank you.
Certainly, if we want to continue increased use at that field, whether it be with 2 teams or attracting another team, we really need to make some investments in the turf. There is some water conservation savings with turf. It is a more durable surface for things like concerts. It is also a capital investment that has to be replaced on approximately a 10-year cycle, depending on the turf.
Thank you, Director. Any other comments or questions from the commission? Madam Hollishaw?
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Director Pinozo, for the update. Want to go ahead and, if you're, I know Thomas is on, and online we normally do not have an item for the city attorney during admin meetings. Like I shared this morning, the city manager update and also the city attorney update was added. So I want to make sure to reflect on that and give Thomas an opportunity to provide any input if he has anything.
Mr. Jordan, you have the floor.
Mayor Collins, Commissioners, I don't have anything to update.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from the commission? Any public comments on this topic? Madam Clerk?
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, I see no hands raised. I have no written public comment on this item.
Thank you. Okay,
All right. Oh, sorry.
go ahead, Manager Hollishaw.
Thank you. These study meetings are a little bit more relaxed, so I apologize, Mayor. In the packet, you would have received the proposed ordinance amending, or the draft amending Title 5 of Chapter 7 of the Helena City Code, and certain definitions found within 5711. And specifically the question, and I'm going to turn this over to our city attorney, Mr. Joden, to provide more detail. And as I understand it, there's some need to complete this task as related to some activities in the community that occurred prior to my arrival. And also this has to do with zoning regulations and noise levels. So Thomas, if you could jump in, that'd be great.
Thanks, Mayor, Commissioners. I'll be brief. I don't think this is too complicated. The current city code has noise regulations that are based on 3 categories: commercial, residential, and industrial. Several of our newer zoning districts, we missed incorporating those districts into this particular noise code. So the code currently states if the zoning districts are not otherwise included in residential or commercial, for definitions of this noise ordinance alone, they fall under industrial. So for example, our new downtown, our transitional district, our 4 RU districts would have and currently have industrial level noise regulation. So this would clarify that R4, RU, OSR are residential, and then downtown transitional residential, which is adjacent to downtown districts, and PLI zoning districts are commercial. So we eliminate that concern that they would be industrial level noises. And this is on the agenda for the 7th for first passage. I can answer any questions.
Comments or questions for Mr. Jordan?
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
I'm just curious. I know in the memo you talked about this really having not been updated much since, I think it said 1975 when it was first adopted. But I'm just curious, or 1972. Was there anything in particular that's prompted this recommendation, or just needing to have some consistency in these other places?
Mayor Collins, Commissioner Dean, actually a former commissioner brought it to my attention and was concerned about the possibility of having the industrial noise levels in downtown district, which used to be B3, which we've lost because it's been rezoned as downtown.
Any other comments or questions from the commission? Do you have any public comments? Madam Clerk?
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, I do not have any hands raised at this time. I do, however, have a comment in the Q&A from Sonda Gaub. What are those decimal levels?
Okay. Any other comments? Public comments? Continue, Madam Hollishaw.
Thank you, Mayor. It sounds like the commission is in support of moving that item to the agenda, and I'll go ahead and work with Thomas to move that on to a next commission meeting. The next item is, I think, ready if you are. That is the marijuana.
Yeah, you have the floor.
Okay, great. Okay. This item addresses House Bill 701 that passed this last legislative session on recreational marijuana planning. And Thomas also and the team within many departments reviewed and provided input and thoughts around the impact of recreational marijuana in the city of Helena, and have brought forward the present situation, which is the proposal, which I'll share over to Thomas to summarize, and appreciate the time and effort of the directors Pinozo, Caugan, and Deputy City Attorney Coate, and Paralegal Carrie Kaufman for their efforts so far as we're just beginning this work. So, Thomas, would you like to take the floor?
Sure, Mayor, Commissioners. This one will be a little bit more lengthy in discussion than the noise ordinance adjustments. So yeah, as the Commission is well aware, Constitutional Initiative 118 and Initiative 190 were passed by Montana voters in November 2020. Then subsequently, House Bill 701 was passed and signed by the governor. Just for your reference, 61% of voters in Lewis and Clark County passed Constitutional Initiative 118, and 59% voted for I-190. For our purposes here today, to get direction, all of those bills and initiatives combined basically allow for the general legalization of recreational marijuana for adults. So there are a few issues that the Commission may want to consider and give direction, and specifically, that is, does the city want to refer to the electorate an ordinance prohibiting some or all types of the marijuana businesses from operating within the city? And those categories of businesses as defined by the House Bill 701 are cultivators, manufacturers, medical marijuana dispensaries, adult use dispensaries, combined use marijuana licensee, marijuana transport facility, and testing laboratories. Billings has recently decided to refer an ordinance or a resolution to its voters to ban one or more of those uses. My understanding is the decision was based on the relatively close vote of I-118 and CI-190 in Yellowstone County and City of Billings. The second question is, does the city want to adopt zoning or business license type regulations on some or all types of those marijuana businesses? And then does the city want to regulate the smoking of marijuana in city owner managed outdoor spaces such as parks and rights of way? In terms of number two, the regulation of the sale of marijuana, House Bill 701 allows the sale of recreational marijuana beginning January 1, 2022. However, on that date, we will not see a wide proliferation of recreational marijuana businesses because from June 1st, 2022 until June 30th, 2023, only the existing and licensed or applied medical marijuana providers as of November 3rd, 2020, which was the date of the election on the initiatives, can begin selling as recreational. And I'm not sure how many we had applied in the pipeline at the time, but as of November 3rd, 2020, we had 12 dispensaries in operation in the city of Helena and licensed. So starting January 1, 2022, until June 30th, 2023, those 12 dispensaries will be the only ones eligible to convert to recreational use. Then in July 1, 2023, new providers can then apply to sell marijuana for adult use, and they will be subject to any zoning regulations we have now. The existing dispensaries will be governed by the existing zoning rules that we have in place. The city currently regulates medical marijuana grow operations, and secondly, medical marijuana dispensaries via those zoning regulations. Dispensaries are allowed with a conditional use permit only in the manufacturing, industrial, and commercial light manufacturing zoning districts. And I'm sorry, no, I had that backwards. That was marijuana grow operations are allowed in the CLM and MI, and dispensaries are allowed by right in business districts like the B1, B2, B3, downtown, commercial light manufacturing, and manufacturing industrial. 701 generally prohibits the city from prohibiting marijuana businesses except through a voter-approved ordinance. However, the government can still regulate marijuana businesses to ensure compliance with public health, safety, welfare requirements that the city may establish. And I think, yeah, that covers it for zoning. I'll stop there before going on to the issue of smoking on city property, see if there's any specific questions on the on referring to the electorate of an ordinance prohibiting, and then whether there might be discussion on zoning or other regulation of recreational sale license marijuana.
Thank you, Attorney Jordan. Do we have any comments or questions from the commission?
Mayor, I have just one quick question.
Please, go ahead.
So even if we wanted to kind of be consistent with how we've handled zoning for medical marijuana, am I right that we would still have to amend our ordinance or the zoning for it also to apply to recreational marijuana, even if it's the same provider doing retail of medical marijuana? Would that cover them, or we still have to amend to also provide for zoning for recreational?
Mayor, Commissioner O'Loughlin, Sharon and I recommend that we look through and work with the zoning commission to see what updates may be necessary. I mean, we definitely at least want to explore the definitions, because we only have two use types, the dispensaries and the grow operations. You can make, obviously, a cultivator is probably a grow operation, but we want to look at the definitions and potentially incorporate the other uses as well, the non-dispensary type uses, plus just generally look at, do we think the impacts related to zoning are going to change if they do convert to recreational sale?
Thank you, Mr. Jordan and Commissioner O'Loughlin. Commissioner Logan, you had your hand up.
My question was answered. Thank you.
Commissioner Dean.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have two questions. One, I know we're just beginning this process, but I'm wondering if at some point we could get maybe some information as to, what we really can regulate or not in terms of signage and the rest. I know that, if this goes to the zoning commission, as you and Sharon sounds like are going to be recommending, that might be a place for some of those conversations. But I'm wondering if we might be able to get some more information about, what levers are actually at our disposal if the commission decides they, want to move in a particular direction or not. And then also might be an opportunity, and I don't know if Commissioner O'Loughlin, since she's on the BID, if they've been talking about this at all or not, but interested to know kind of what the BID is thinking in terms of the downtown zoning piece. And then my last question is just a logistical one. And I guess once July 1, 2023 comes around, do we or will we have any process to I guess cross-check those who are filing business licenses in Helena and those who are registering with I guess DOR once their department gets up and moving? I know right now it's obviously DPHHS, but moving to DOR. So I'm just wondering if we will have a process to ensure we are actually catching all of those that are filing with the state.
Mayor Collins, Commissioner Dean, I think we have that process in place now, because you have to get a business license.
Right.
Obviously, they will not be able to be a new recreational use because they did not exist as of November 2020. So what we have now is what we're going to have. I think there's an interesting question about what we do with new medical marijuana licensees and how we treat those in the intervening 18 months. But yes, we do have a way to track that. Our business licensing review does require proof of licensing from the appropriate state agency, whoever that might be, which will now be, Department of Revenue.
Thank you, Attorney Jordan. Do we have any other comments from the commission? And in public comments on this topic?
Mayor, if I could I stopped there kind of 2/3 of the way through. The third issue is currently the city precludes has two resolutions. One deals with voluntary outdoor smoke-free areas that was adopted much more recently than the resolution that prohibits the use of any tobacco product in city parks. Both of those resolutions are oriented towards tobacco. And so the question is, does the commission desire to expand the scope of those regulations or those resolutions to include marijuana or use of marijuana?
Thank you. Commissioners? Go ahead, Commissioner O'Loughlin.
Yeah, just a question for the city attorney, and you probably know that this is coming, but I'm always just kind of curious how we compare with other municipalities. I'm sort of imagining that other municipalities are moving in this direction of limiting sort of the recreational use in public spaces or public parks. Is that your sense from the league, or any sense of what other municipalities are thinking?
So Mayor, Commissioner O'Loughlin, Billings, as I mentioned, has voted to float an ordinance or a resolution banning. But my understanding is that is to just ban the commercial sale, the transporter, all those commercial type uses. Kalispell, and I know I'm not directly answering the question. I think I'll get there. Kalispell is the sale. Storefronts are currently illegal. Kalispell picked up the language Helena used to have, which was you can't give a business license to anything that is prohibited by federal law. So Kalispell doesn't currently allow it, but they are moving forward with updating their zoning because, on June 30th, 2023, they're going to have something in place if they want to regulate it by zoning. Missoula, I don't know what they're proposing to do. I do know currently under their code, marijuana dispensaries are treated like a professional medical office. And then Bozeman has what I think are called time, place restrictions and storefront regulations, distances, and so forth. In terms of the personal use on city property and city rights of way, I do not know what other jurisdictions are doing.
Okay. Thank you. Comments or questions from commissioners? City Attorney, is your presentation concluded?
Yeah, I just conclude with, in terms of the recommendation, if I didn't expressly state those, the staff does not recommend referring an ordinance to the electorate prohibiting any of the types of marijuana businesses. It seems clear that by the amount that the voters passed both the initiatives, that really isn't something desirable in the city. In terms of the zoning review, we do recommend that we look at those definitions, engage with the zoning commission, and if the zoning commission wants to recommend a zoning ordinance, which I think will more than likely be the case, the commission instruct that, and then expanding the scope of resolution 20551 and 20147 to include the smoking of marijuana in outdoor smoke-free areas. That one is voluntary. Just want to make that sure that's clear. And then the parks resolution to preclude the use of marijuana on city parks.
Thank you, City Attorney Jordan. Do we have any other comments or questions from the commission?
Well, Mayor, I'll just say I'm comfortable with all three of those recommendations. I'll let you see if there's consensus, but I do have one related question before we move on to the next topic after you get consensus.
Thank you. Commissioner Logan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would agree in terms of consensus on the items recommended by staff. I do have one question for the city attorney relative to the public consumption of marijuana. Is there any state or federal law that comes to bear on this public consumption of marijuana?
Mayor, Commissioner Logan, you're talking about the consumption on streets or public parks.
Yes.
No. Other than general personal use is allowed. Except obviously federal law, it's still prohibited. Possession of marijuana is still prohibited under federal law.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Comments from the commission? Concerning consensus about the three recommendations by the staff?
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
I'm also supportive of the staff recommendation. I really appreciate everything Thomas has included in here, and excited to kind of hear some of the discussion moving forward. I would say that I think, the one good thing about Montana maybe being a little bit behind some of the other states is that we can have a lot of lessons learned in terms of how things have rolled out in other communities. So I think a really good opportunity to, just make sure we're doing it right, and excited to see what comes of it.
Thank you. And I'm also in favor of the recommendations provided by the staff. Thanks a lot, Mr. Jordan, for your presentation. Do we have any public comments on this topic?
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, I have no hands raised. I do have one written public comment from Sonda Gaub. Can we regulate marijuana through permits like open container for alcohol?
Thank you. Any others? Okay, Madam Howell-Schacht?
Mayor, do you mind if I just ask one kind of related question, but not on those recommendations?
Please, go ahead.
So I just would love an update on where the county sits right now with putting on sort of the local tax. Have we, are they still moving forward? Is that expected to be on the November ballot? And I am wondering if we've seen the language.
Mr. Jordan or Madam Howell-Schacht?
Thank you, Mayor. As we understand it, yes, they are moving forward. I have not seen the language. We can reach out to them. I also wanted to make sure and share to you, I'm not sure if you had this information in your packet on our current status of the number of business licenses in Helena. I just want to make sure you saw that progression over time real quickly. So in 2018, we had 1 license. In 2019, these are requests. In 2019, we had 12. In 2020, we had 3. In 2021, we had 6. So just a total of 22, and just underscoring what City Attorney Jordan had said around the 12 that can move currently, that are in the 22 that can move to adding rec marijuana in the big picture, as the opportunity for the discussion around sales tax and putting it on the agenda. I know that there's been conversations about improved services for mental health and involvement of the city in a greater capacity in mental health as well. The next item up is an item that the city, just housing and homelessness overall, this is another opportunity. So if I'm going to take the moment to make a plug for use of those dollars, those 3%, if in fact they're passed, the portion that comes to Helena, to looking at these 2 items that we as a city have not invested in traditionally. So by way of homelessness as well as mental health. So just going to take that opportunity.
Yeah.
Was your question answered, Commissioner?
I think the answer was just no. So if we could get the language that is going to be on the ballot, I think that would be helpful. And in part because of what you've referenced, City Manager. I mean, I think when it comes to putting something in front of the voters, it is always helpful for the voters to know and understand how the money is going to be used. So if we can be helpful in crafting that language based off of what we have in mind at this point, that might be helpful to the county. So yeah, maybe an update next week would be great.
Great. Oh, and we have the meeting coming up with the commission and it's the joint city county.
The joint session, yeah.
Yeah, so that's also an opportunity to get further clarification as well. So, thank you.
Oh,
Any
and
other
then Mayor,
Go
I was
ahead.
just gonna, to Commissioner Dean's question about the BID, they are meeting, I think, next week that I'm attending. So I'm happy to sort of put that question in front of them as well.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments or questions from the commission? Okay. Madam Hollishock?
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of weeks ago, we had an emergency meeting on homelessness. And in particular, there was a lot of questions around what's happening with our homeless population, and also a heightened sensitivity given the moratorium on evictions was being rescinded at that time. Now, the moratorium went back into effect. Ultimately, though, that moratorium will be removed, and we also still have the ongoing concerns around homelessness in our community. At not only a commission administrative meeting, but also at a joint city-county meeting, commission meeting, we had representatives from the housing community and our partners present, provide updates. One in particular brought forward a recommendation. Not all were in agreement that that was the best recommendation forward to address the primary homelessness. However, it is something that we are bringing to you tonight to close out and come around on. We understand that the county is not interested in this conversation around the potential use of the HOTS proposal, which was brought forward by Good Samaritan. Now, I'm going to turn it over to Chief Hagan, who's here to provide an update and an overview on this item for you all, and look forward to sharing any updates. I know also that we have a couple of our housing community members here, as well as our housing coordinator, Cara Snyder, and of course, Director Haugen is also here. So, Chief Hagan.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners.
Good evening.
Here to talk to you a little bit about emergency homeless, and I'll give you an update. What we're looking at and looking for direction on is, do we want to work with Good Samaritan to establish a HOTS program in Helena, which is, HOTS program is Helena Outdoor Temporary Safe Shelter Program. It's basically modeled after Missoula's program that they set up last year. And it's, for lack of a better term, tents set up in a vacant lot to get the folks out of the weather. And then the other thing to discuss is, we want to partner with other nonprofits partner with nonprofits in the community, possibly through a community development block grant, to purchase and assist in managing a structure to house citizens who are suffering from homelessness in Helena. I'm going to try to be fairly brief. A lot of this was included in your packet, but as many of you know, this summer there's been an increase in the number of complaints on homeless people that are setting up camps downtown and other places in Helena. There's also been an increase in complaints of folks living in their vehicles and their campers and their RVs in various neighborhoods in the city. Though the actual numbers of homeless in Helena is very hard to determine, they do a point of time survey every January, and in 2020 it was 95 unsheltered homeless residents in Helena. And in 2021, that number increased to 131. As you all know, this is not a new issue in Helena. I've been here for 30 years and it comes up just about every summer. A very predictable pattern when warm weather arrives in Helena, the visibility of our homeless citizens increases, and as does the outcry to fix the problem, especially in the downtown area. When the cold weather returns, the visibility of those that suffer from homelessness decrease. However, it may dissipate, those concerns may dissipate. However, their situation becomes more desperate because of the need for a more secure shelter, a warmer shelter. Over the past year, we've had a new resource, which has been Good Samaritan Street Outreach. Though the program has just been a Band-Aid on the homeless issue, it's at least provided the police department with the ability to get folks emergency shelter, especially in the winter when it's sub-zero temperatures in Helena. At the recent joint City Commission and County Commission meeting, Good Samaritan presented details of the Helena Outdoor Temporary Safe Shelter Program. As the city manager said, the county has determined they do not wish to participate in the program. But HOTS is a possible next step in working to find solutions to sheltering the homeless citizens of Helena. Again, it's modeled after Missoula's program. Included in your packet tonight was the draft budget from Good Samaritan, and that does not include the land, as Good Samaritan is still trying to find a suitable location, and it does not include the shower facility. The staff is recommending that the city partner with Good Samaritan to implement a form of the HOTS program that will work in the Helena community. And it's further recommended that a possible source of that funding would be the Housing Trust Fund. As part of that implementation, I think it would be very important for the city and community partners to go to Missoula and see how they have implemented the program, what's worked, what's not worked, and see what would work in Helena. At the same time, we recommend that the city of Helena work with nonprofits in the community to secure funding, possibly through a community development block grant, to purchase and manage a more permanent structure to assist housing residents that are homeless in a more weatherproof environment. And again, as part of that implementation, it would probably behoove us to go to Missoula to see what they have done with the hotel that they purchased. And Mayor and Commission, winter's coming. The police department and other city staff are requesting assistance in addressing the emergency housing needs of the homeless citizens in Helena. And we're basically seeking direction on what you would like staff to move forward with. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Hagan. Madam Hollishock, are you finished?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I just want to underscore that there are alternatives. Of course, we can follow the lead of the county and decline to participate in the HOTS program. We could decline to partner with Helena area nonprofits in securing funding to purchase a permanent structure to house those in Helena. One could support the HOTS program through a donation of city property, but provide no additional financial support. And last, continue to work with community partners to temporarily shelter those in our community suffering from homeless, shelter people on an as needed basis, well, without more and further investment. So that's the question is, how far do you want to go and in what ways? Thank you.
Thank you. Comments or questions from the commission?
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
I have a few questions. First, Chief, thanks for that presentation, and Rachel for keeping this on the front burner. So I guess my first question is, in the second staff recommendation, it mentions it, purchasing and managing a permanent facility or structure. By manage, are you? I know in our previous conversations that we've talked about having, partnering with a nonprofit to manage that type of facility. Is that still the goal there? Not the city necessarily hiring folks to manage and do the case management, et cetera?
Thank you, Commissioner Dean. Steve, Chief Hagan, certainly jump in if I misstate, but our understanding and recommendation is really that we would make these financial investments and then our partners would take over management in the long run.
Okay, thanks. And then in terms of the budget that was provided, and then obviously, Chief, you mentioned the land and the shower trailer was not included in that. Is the vision that the city is to, we would help cover all of these costs, or is there other funding sources that are available? You mentioned the CBDG grant, but do we know, what percentage of this the city, realistically should and could cover, or are there other funding sources that Good Sam's and the rest are looking at too?
I do believe Good Sam's is online, and maybe Teresa could come forward and answer some of that question. I know Missoula did use some CARES money and other funding sources. I don't believe much, if any, was spent directly from the city budget of Missoula, but that would be one of the things we would definitely want to figure out. Probably not try to reinvent the wheel, try to see what Missoula's done and see what we can learn from what they've done. So, Mayor, it looks like Teresa Ortega's on. If you would like to hear from her.
Yeah, just in a minute. Maybe let's pick up on Commissioner Logan, and then maybe she can come in and answer those questions. I'm assuming Commissioner Logan has a question. Commissioner Logan?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. My question was along the lines of Commissioner Dean's relative to the finances. I mean, the budget, it wasn't entirely clear who was responsible for what. I guess I'd just like to say I'm generally supportive of the exploration of the idea of both the HOTS, the temporary, as well as a potential long-term solution to this. I guess one of the concerns that I'd like to raise at this point is, we've had a few meetings. We've heard about this, I don't know, I'd say at 3 administrative meetings, maybe, from Good Samaritan and others. But, how much outreach have we done to the public at large? I mean, I don't recall seeing much in the newspaper about, and of course we don't control the newspaper, the TV or anything. But, I think with a issue like this, really probably ought to engage the public as strongly as we can. So, but I am interested in the financial impact and just making sure we're reaching out to the public as much as we can.
Thank you, Commissioner. And Chief, my question here is, what was the reasoning behind the county's refusal? What did they say? Why did the county refuse to participate in this?
I don't think, Mayor, I know you are asking Chief Hagan. I actually had received that response from the city administrator, and there is no specific reason other than they believe there's not enough time to show that the HOT-S program would be the best solution for an emergency. And the opportunity, like we shared and discussed earlier, it still exists for you all to ask that question in our joint city and county meeting coming up too.
Yeah, because like I said before, and I'm saying it again, homelessness in this community is it's not only a city issue, it's a tri-county issue. And we all should be getting on board on this, not only the city of Helena, because the homeless people that I've seen, they're not from Helena. And so if we're talking about these things, I still say we need everybody to the table addressing this issue. We should not be the only ones that I'm discussing this, because it's more than just the city of Helena. And I'm surprised that the county would say what they're saying. But anyway, That's where I'm at. I'll get off my soapbox. Director Hoggett.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, Sharon Hogan, Community Development Director. I just want to do a couple of clarifying things. Sources like Community Development Block Grant will pay for like the purchase of the land and the more tangible materials, operating expenses, ongoing insurance, cameras, those types of activities would have to come from another source. So I just kind of wanted to help. Not to say there aren't other sources, but the block grant money and in conversations with Commerce would more than likely pay for the, if possible, we could apply for the land, possibly the staffing office, the trailer for showers, but most of the things on the budget, although all important, would have to be covered from other sources. In addition, they could, block grant money could also be used for the purchase of a motel, if that's what we so choose to pursue. I just, that would be helpful for clarification.
Thank you, Director.
Mayor, also, I did not answer the second part of your question, was that where does the county stand on the permanent solution? As they had shared before to us, we could always apply into their ARPA funding if we wanted to seek grant dollars from the county to participate in this long-term solution as well.
Thank you. Ms. Ortega, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. City Commissioners, Mayor, and City Manager, thank you for having us on today. One of the big, as far as going forward money and us looking how this could be sustained, that's a huge issue for us. And what we want to look at is, we've also talked about the ARPA money as well, as seeing if we can tap into that to get this going. This is a temporary shelter that I think that's been hit on. It's worked well in Missoula, but how to get it going here with some kind of support. The minute you say tent city, people just really get a little fearful, I would say, of that. I think it would be very important for the city council members to see what's going on in Missoula, so it's not just talk coming from nonprofits who obviously sometimes we wear our hearts on our sleeves too much. I think that would make a key difference in how this is being looked at. If the possibility was for us to look at a hotel, I have no doubt that a hotel would be used all the time with the way that it's being run through Good Samaritan right now with Ara Babcock, who's also on the line. So I definitely, there's, if we could look at the ARPA funds, if we could look at CDBG funds, there's different funding sources out there for homelessness, and to try and pull all those together. I actually took a bit of a break from this because I didn't think it was going to go anywhere. So it's back to the drawing board, and I'm working with a realtor right now on the property that we've identified out by the airport. So that's one option. And we have not found a hotel that's actually for sale right now, but from what I understand, that changes all the time. So we'll see what happens there. Did I answer some of those questions? Oh, and obviously, if we're going to go forward, we would need to look at some form of fundraising for that as well, as long as it is open and when it is open. Are there more questions? Do I need to be redirected in another way?
One question, quick question. When we say it's temporary, what do we mean when we say temporary? From when to when, or for how long?
So as we know, when temporary buildings are put up for schools, elementary schools, colleges, a lot of times they do not end up being temporary. And I'm kind of concerned that'll happen in this situation as well. Because we all know that our existing shelter gets full. We all know that when the COVID pandemic hit, the communal living style, if you will, needed to be separated. And I see that happening very soon as well here in Helena. Because the more you congregate people in a living situation, the more the disease spreads. So I can see it going on. Missoula was only supposed to be for the winter time, and it is still expanding, and it's actually moving into another location in Missoula, I believe. And I think, or if that's not correct, let me know, but that was the last I heard. So it may or may not be temporary, Mayor, depending what our needs are. There's also the issue that does our homeless shelter, this is not the only issue. It's the mentally ill that are out on the streets that are being discharged onto the streets that may not be able to stay at our shelter for one reason or not. So that's another piece of who our homeless is. And that's what we do well, and we would look forward to working with in the HOTS setting as well. I hope I answered. It's a catch-22 on that homelessness, if it's going to be needed and how long.
Thank you, Ms. Ortega. Any other comments or questions from the commission?
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, Commissioner.
I just have a few comments, and I really appreciate this conversation. I think that, I do think it's every person's responsibility to make sure that we're caring for our neighbors. And obviously this continues to be, as the chief said, it's a perennial issue, and something that we, obviously need to make sure that we're dealing with, because it's not going away. And, I think it's important for us to take care of those who are most vulnerable in our community. Even though, Mr. Mayor, I think you're right, most people are not actually from Helena, but, they're here. And so I think that, we can't just turn a blind eye. I would say, and I understand why, I think one of the things that we keep hearing is, and I think Teresa hit the nail on the head in terms of when you say tent city, people freak out. It does give me pause just in terms of how rough some of our winters are. I mean, Missoula is warmer than us all through the winter. And so that's something that I do want to keep in mind, but I think it's also, I'd rather have some sort of tent shelter than no shelter in the winter. So I think that's something to consider. One thing that I really think we should maybe think about in terms of, a long-term solution, and I think this gets to Teresa's point in terms of, is it really temporary? Is, can we look at some sort of actual transitional housing? I know there's what's now a national organization that's really done some incredible work in terms of transitional housing for veterans. In particular, it's called the Veterans Community Project. It started in Kansas City, and actually it's tiny homes for veterans who are homeless, and provide the same sort of caseworker facilities that Teresa and Good Sam's have outlined in this program. I know in Sioux Falls, where they just opened one, the city participated by actually donating the 2 acres of land. But I think that might be a solution that, or a model, if, we can't get a hotel or it's too expensive to, upkeep an entire facility like that. Are there other steps that we can take, like tiny homes that, actually provide shelter and some transitional housing that we can continue to rely on for years to come? Because this, it's not going away. And I do think that, the longer we kick the can down the road, status quo will just remain.
Thank you, Commissioner Logan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not entirely certain I heard, maybe I missed it, of the budget that is presented in the informational packet. What responsibility would be the city's?
Thank you, Commissioner. Ms. Ortega?
At this point, I don't think we had documented any of that was directly city responsibility. We were looking for a piece of property that was hopefully for a donation or a very cheap rent, but gosh, if the city would have a piece that we could use, that would be phenomenal. We do need help with some grant writing as far as the bigger needs, such as this trailer, which is going to make a huge difference in the lives of those that are homeless, to just be able to get a shower and start rebuilding their lives. And if I could go on a minute, so, that's pretty much open to discussion on how we would do that, where we would search for money and what we would do. And, I do want to say, I have spent a lot of time down at our place, and I've been out with Ryan on the streets on meeting the homelessness. And it does surprise me. There's quite a few people from Helena that are on the streets. There's lots of people from elsewhere as well. But, it's kind of a mix. And when you see the homelessness and you work with the homelessness, they may travel all over, but when they're to the point that they've got services, the quality of services is what's important with the sheltering, but the quality of services that people are ready. And I think that's what we've been able to demonstrate. Our quality of services to the homelessness has been very spot on with getting people housed who've been in this situation. So I hope that makes sense of where I'm going with this. It is a shelter piece. It may not be the best, but the quality of services provided there is what is important. I do see this, Commissioner. I appreciate what you said. I think this is a starting point. To jump into a hotel is a great plan, but then we got utilities, we've got larger insurances, we've got so much more. So maybe this is a step into the direction we're looking at. Tiny homes would be amazing. And we as nonprofit community members have looked at that over the years. And as Chief Hagan says, this comes up every year at this time. I've been at Helena, I've been in Good Samaritan for nearly 10 years now, if not a little bit more. And every year this comes up. So I would like to see a start somewhere to work alongside our homeless shelter that cannot serve everyone. Is that clear enough? Do I need to expound on anything?
Thank you, Ms. Ortega. Do you have any other comments or questions from the commission?
I guess, Mayor, just one sort of overarching question. And I think this is probably to the city manager and to Director Haugen. I think what's challenging about these sort of one-off conversations that come to the commission is that it's really hard to get a full sense of the landscape. I mean, I've had some one-on-one conversations with folks in the community. You've also mentioned in the start of this presentation that there's, some differing opinions on what the best solutions are. So I guess just one big kind of question to you all is, given all of the outreach and meetings that you have had with stakeholders, is the city still putting forward this as the best next step? And is it factoring in kind of all of what you said, just some of the differing opinions?
Thank you, Commissioner. The most difficult part of the conversation is the point that many have, which is, first, is it the role of the city to provide this emergency housing and homelessness? And so that has been the ongoing first stop in the conversation. And then the second has been, is this the best answer? And I think there's a strong argument that this kind of a tent city is not good enough for those that are homeless, those that are the most in need, and also those who are also choosing to live outdoors. And there's a distinction, I think, with the long term, and I appreciate our partners at the Helena Housing Authority who have shared the point, and it's also mentioned in the chat, which is that case management is really the long-term support structure for someone who is homeless that can move them into permanent housing. So this being the first step into the government landscape and getting them into case management is the only support space that I'm coming from in that potential. exists. Not necessarily, again, that it's the permanent solve, but to get them, the community members, the homeless community members, into case management. And you'll look in the chat. United Way has shared their interest in supporting case management services and the support for mental health and chemical dependency. A lot of what you'll see in our homeless population is mental health and chemical dependency. So the potential to get them into some sort of case management, not just sheltered, is an opportunity. You know, the homelessness and the mental health conversation that we've had separately are interrelated in this event in particular. And is it a perfect solve? No. Yes, there's very differing points of view. There are lots of nonprofits that provide support in sheltering in particular areas of our population and movement into permanent housing. But this narrow space of homelessness and in particular those in living on our streets who will be in and doing so in the winter is the place we're just trying to address. And this is the solution that has come forward. We've asked and done research in other spaces and places and welcome more ideas, but at this point, this is the one we've got to address this emerging issue, this urgent issue, and the long-term being this larger permanent housing. So my hope is that HOTSS is not long-term, that it is only temporary while we get something permanent. And Director Haugen, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, and in addition to what the city manager talked about, the other things, and I don't know if this will answer your question or not, Commissioner O'Loughlin, but we're also working, obviously homeless and affordable housing is such a broad issue, and we only have so many resources. But another example, working with a homeless, and I don't know if that's the right term or if the YWCA would concur with this, but we are working with a YWCA to help put together a CARES community development block grant for remodel of their buildings so that they can better serve the population that they do. We too have been engaged with any realtors to see if there is an available housing and with the county on some cooperative efforts to see how to best address this. I mean, the Housing Trust Fund, I think, will go a long way. We're getting closer to having those guidelines. We're actually putting them out for public comment and do that. That is a source of money, but is this the best solution? It is probably the simplest and maybe I dare say cheapest solution, not to put a price on people in homelessness. But it is in and of itself, I think even the Good Sam's and United Way would concur with this. Even this solution isn't that simple at the end of the day.
Thank you, Director Hogan. Ms. Ortega, I see your hands up.
Just real quickly, Mayor, City Commissioners, and City Manager, I really appreciated what your thoughts, Rachel, were on this. And I think you're right on spot. And that's what I was trying to say. You can have a place, but if you don't have the services to help people to get to the next place, we're still going to be in the same place we are. Something we have started doing and working with people with that Ryan is in place is that we serve people. And when we get to the point, there is nothing else for them. We're trying to say, where's your next option? Where's your family? When people were removed from Cruz Avenue, which by the way has been started to call Camp Cruz, they had nowhere else to go. If we had a place and say, this is your last option, and then if they turn that down, we can come back and say, there is nothing left here for you. We have tried everything. And that's happened with a couple people since that whole scenario took place, and they've left town to find other resources with family. So that's another piece of what we're doing, is helping people self-resolve when they get to this point. So I just wanted to add that. I don't have any more. So.
Thank you. So, Madam Hollishock, what is it you need from us tonight?
Thank you, Mayor. The commission, is there consensus that the commission is interested in the city partnering with Good Samaritan to establish and provide funding for the HOT SS ideas brought forward in their outdoor temporary safe shelter program? So that's the first question. And then the second is, does the city want to partner and work with nonprofits in the community to secure additional funding for the purchase of a permanent structure to house citizens suffering from homelessness? And again, that would also be a partnership ask where the city makes their financial investment in the front end, and the partnership with Good Samaritan and others in the community take and step in for management.
Commissioners?
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
I am supportive of really nailing down what this looks like and starting to figure out how we move forward. I think what would be really helpful, and I think also in terms of communicating to the public, where we need input and really what this could be. I think it'd be helpful if we could put together some sort of graphic or documentation of really, Rachel, like what you describe as, we have I think a previous meeting, you called it an emergent and urgent issue. I think Chief Hagan has described why, it's so important that, we are figuring something out, because winter is, Christmas is less than 4 months away. And I think that being able to clearly communicate what this could potentially look like, we have an emergency that we need to have some sort of emergency solution where I think HOTS could come in, but then what does that kind of continuum look like, and who are the partners that are involved at each level? And I think that's also where, we have Good Sam's, but then we also have YWCA and God's Love, and then Helena Housing Authority. And here are the other services that people need to be continuing to receive to really move into that permanent housing. But I think, and I think Commissioner O'Loughlin spoke to this, it is, we've been hearing about it on the commission a lot, obviously, but I don't think necessarily the average Helena resident understands or knows the entire continuum and how it looks like when you put those pieces together and where those gaps are. And so I think making sure that we can clearly explain and can communicate why, if the commission agrees, why this emergency sheltering is really required, and then what it looks like moving forward. And, one thing I think we should think about and maybe come back to the county with, apparently they are not interested in necessarily HOTS, but I did hear from Commissioner Rolfe at that last meeting that he's very interested in those support services and helping provide that case management piece. So let's ask them to help more in those areas where, if they can get 2 of the 3 to support. I think that is an opportunity for us to kind of piece together some of these supports that need more bolstering if we're actually going to make a dent in solving these issues.
Thank you. Any other comments from the commission?
Mayor, I think we still need to take public comment, and I would just say I'd love to hear from other stakeholders. I know we've gotten some written comments here, but even those that have provided written comments, if you have thoughts or feedbacks of where things stand in the community, it'd be nice to hear from folks.
Thank you. And Ms. Ortega, I remember the last time I also included Jefferson County. Has there been any conversation with Jefferson County at all? Ms. Ortega? Ms. Ortega, you're muted. So if you're speaking, we can't hear you. Okay, at this time, we'll take public comments then. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comments?
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, I do have a hand raised and I do have several written public comments. What would you like to proceed with first?
You know, people who write in comments, if they're here, they should be able to present them publicly. So we will have the public comments. And if you're here present, please present your comments.
Okay, then
Go
first,
ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I do have Conrad Everts.
Go ahead, sir.
All right, you got me?
Yes, sir.
So you and I and Sharon and my wife met on this topic twice in the first month of your term. I suggested exactly what Teresa is suggesting, which was a model after Bozeman, which was a tiny house model on some property at the time I had recently acquired. Do you recall those two meetings?
Yes, sir.
So my question is, as somebody who has been homeless myself in the past, I sat down with you and Sharon twice trying to collaborate on this. Would that have been 3.5 years ago?
Are you done, sir?
So that'd be about 3.5 years ago, if I remember right. Is that right?
Please continue.
So my question is, since you and I met, and Sharon and my wife, the four of us met twice, proposing this exact model, are you now finally acting on this because it's time to get reelected?
Oh,
Are you done, sir?
That was a question, Wilmot.
Howard.
Are you done? That's why I asked.
Yes, Wilmot, that was a question. I'd like an answer.
Thank you. Ms. Ortega, I see your hands raised.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so I've been going to and several of us have been going to the Broadwater Social Services meeting and addressing these issues and bringing them up. I know. And I don't think they're at the place they can really address this. They've said they haven't had homeless and it hasn't been an issue for them right now. But I think maybe not having to deal with this in the past, it's very much new to them. So we keep talking to them about that.
Okay. Thank you. Madam Clerk?
Mr. Mayor, at this time, I have no other hands raised. I can move forward with reading the written comment if you'd prefer.
Yes, please go ahead.
So first, I do have a written comment from Conrad Everts. Haven't you done enough damage to Helena businesses? Helena has a tourism sector. Creating a homeless camp in Helena will damage tourism. How many homeless people is Wilmot Collins housing tonight? How many is Heather O'Loughlin housing tonight? Seriously, how many? The next comment I have is simply from United Way staff. In addition to housing, HOTS would provide case management services to support people in seeking out mental health, chemical dependency treatment, etc. This could happen on site at HOTS. The majority of the homeless neighbors on the case conferencing list are long-term Lewis and Clark County residents. In terms of the temporary may also mean a type of structures on the property, not permanent, but temporary structures like sturdy temporary shelters, like were used at the fairgrounds, a mobile shower trailer, etc. When we register folks that are currently homeless in Helena, most are from Montana, have been in shelters in other cities and around the state. Next comment from Sonda Gaub. Will the HOTS program replace the voucher hotel system that is in place at this time in God's Love, YWCA, and YMCA always full? the final comment from United Way staff, we have started a conversation that the school district and city of East Helena. I
Thank
do
you.
have an additional hand raised at this time, Mr. Mayor. I would ask that the United Way staff please identify themselves if they'd like to make public comment. Never mind, hands down. I apologize,
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. At this time, we have the floor open for public comments on any topic. Madam Clerk.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, I have no general public comment. Not sure if we followed up on that remaining item with the city manager, so I'd ask if we needed to do any further follow-up on the emergency homeless update.
Okay, did we have any consensus on the recommendation?
Mayor, if I may, I believe I heard interest in investigating the potential for the hot SS. And I think there's very much interest in finding more detail around and listening, more detail around what the costs are and the cost share and the actual implementation. So coming back to you all with more detail on that, I believe I heard consensus on. And then the second was the same, of moving forward and looking into more on the funding front related to a permanent homeless shelter in the future.
Thank you.
Unless I'm wrong. Certainly, I do believe I heard consensus on all three. All two,
Okay,
excuse me.
thanks, Madam Hollishock. At this time, we have information only. We have the ESCI Fire Department study update. Number 6, we review of future agenda items for the next commission meeting. A, draft proposed future commission and administrative meeting agenda. And do we have any comments or questions from the commission on these?
Yeah, Mayor, I have one question on item 8A, the draft future meetings.
6A? Oh, 8A. Well, you got it. Okay, go ahead.
So city manager, I know that we have on a list a working session to discuss the redevelopment agency. It says on page 1 of the memo, August. I don't see it on the calendar, and I'm wondering if we need to get that scheduled.
Thank you. I believe we were waiting for the final report from the consultant. Director Haugen, is that correct? The redevelopment agency working session scheduling we had anticipated for August. We are still waiting for the final report from the consultant on the establishment of the redevelopment agency.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, we're waiting for some of the final things. I believe the city manager and I need to get on the phone with him because he had a couple of clarifying questions for her. So we'll get that scheduled sometime in September, if that's possible. So.
Great, thanks. And Mayor, maybe the clerk could sort of get us pulled and figure out a date that works, just so we can get it on our calendars. Assuming it's a special meeting.
Sure. Madam Clerk, would you try to arrange that?
Certainly, Mayor and Commissioner O'Loughlin, I will get out a commission poll this evening.
You bet. Okay, we'll go back. Is there anyone in the public wishes to address the commission? Madam Clerk?
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, I see no hands raised and no additional public comment has been written other than those that I've read previously.
Thank you. Commission discussion and direction. Madam City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. I will be moving forward with the revisions to the noise ordinance as proposed, as well moving forward with the implementation recommendations as brought forward on our recreational marijuana planning, House Bill 701. Will also follow up on the language that would be proposed within the county's levy potential opportunity. Also provide more detail and follow up to you all specific to the HOT SS program and the potential for a permanent location long-term. Thank you.
At this time, any final comments from the commission? If not, this meeting is adjourned.